Hey, welcome everybody to the Behind the Gate podcast. Welcome back. We took a little hiatus last week. Unfortunately, we were trying to get an episode in. I was on vacation. AJ's schedule was crazy, so it didn't work out. We missed the Daytona recap, and that's unfortunate. But we're going to pick it up now with the Indy recap for this episode. But before we get into it, we want to acknowledge one of our biggest supporters, one of AJ's biggest supporters of the season, and an all-around awesome company, and that's Maxxis Tires. You've heard us talk about them before, but now that it's coming into mountain bike season, for me personally, this is where I get all my Maxxis stuff. I run Maxxis Tires on all of my bikes now, and they are absolutely second to none. And truthfully, I'm not even just saying that because they're a big sponsor of AJ's this year. In fact, I made the switch over to Maxxis a while ago, and it just so happened that AJ picked them up as a sponsor, and it all worked out, and it's really cool. But if you're into mountain biking and dirt biking or one or the other, I know I could personally attest that the Maxxis tire system, regardless if you're cross country, enduro, downhill, those are the three disciplines I use them for. They are absolutely second to none. They have tubeless options. They have all kinds of different tread compounds, tread patterns, casing options for resistant to punctures, different sidewall constructions that make them a very an adaptable tire option. So you can adapt them to all different types of conditions, riding circumstances. And the tubeless is, I love tubeless. I made the switch to tubeless on mountain bikes a while ago. It is definitely one of the best little things you could do to your bike setup to really set it apart from what you were running before. It is such an unbelievable, it's not only convenient, but it's better response. So you get better feel for the trail or feel for the terrain, better grip. You can run lower tire pressure, so you get better traction. It's better in the corners. You're resistant to punctures and tears and all that stuff. It's just a ridiculously awesome thing. So me, where I use Maxxis is on the mountain bikes now that I'm out of the motorcycle side. But AJ, you're having a lot of success with the Maxxis dirt bike tires. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm loving them. In fact, we just switched to a 120 rear tire 3 weeks ago, and I've been really struggling with my starts since I've made that switch because of the amount of traction I've been getting. So, yeah, I've been talking to the team, and it's a good problem to have. It's just when you don't get a chance to really practice your starts during the week, the amount of traction is insane. And before I was running a 110, which is I would say less common for a 450 rider to run a 110 rear tire, and that thing was hooking up amazing off the start as well. So, I mean, these tires are no joke. I know a lot of people are a little afraid to stray from the norm when it comes to moto, but they're making a huge push in moto. Obviously, they're proven in mountain bike. They're probably, I would have to say, the leader in side-by-side stuff. They have great truck tires. All around, great company. Awesome people. I got to meet one of their East Coast truck drivers this weekend. They had the semi out there supporting me this weekend in Indy. I mean, they've stepped up huge. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's funny. We've talked about it before, but and I was just as big of a culprit for this. Is tires are one of those things where you get loyal to a brand or you get comfortable with the tire, and it's one of those things that's really hard to make a switch. You get it in your head like this is the tire that I'm going to run. You know, when I used to race in the woods, I only used the Pirelli MT16 tire. And sometimes I would actually run a trials tire depending on conditions, but I was one of those guys who that was my tire. That's what I was comfortable on. That's what a lot of woods guys were running around me, and you just kind of become entrenched in that. But when you step out of that comfort zone, and believe me, you should take our advice on this because we're not just going to plug a product that we don't feel 100% confident in. And when you make the switch from those tires that you're previously comfortable with to a superior tire, you will absolutely say to yourself, "What took me so long?"
Yep.
And I'm sure you would agree with that, AJ. Maxxis is a very, very innovative company. They put a lot of research, a lot of time into their products, and it is a perceivable difference, both on the bike, the wear, how they hold up, just every aspect of your riding will change because of this tire. I guarantee it. So do yourself a favor, scoop up some Maxxis tires. We're hopefully going to be doing a giveaway shortly where you get your opportunity to win some Maxxis tires. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, go give them a follow on Instagram. They have a lot of cool content, and we couldn't be happier to support them as they support AJ and his race endeavor this season. So thank you to Maxxis. So this week we're going to do an Indy breakdown. It is just AJ and I. So we're going to have an opportunity to kind of debrief from the weekend, get AJ's thoughts on the race, how it went, what the conditions were like, what some of the variables were and all that, and kind of just give a nice thorough breakdown of everything. So without further ado, we're just going to get right into it. AJ, you and I have talked briefly since the race on Saturday night, but now's our opportunity to really delve into it. What happened?
Yeah. frustrating night for sure.
So yeah, I mean, you throughout the day were amazingly fast. You qualified the highest that you've qualified this season. You were 18th, fastest in both B group qualifiers. So you were on pace to do really well at night. Did that jinx you? What ended up break out that first heat for us, and maybe even if you want to start with how you felt in those qualifiers.
Yeah, the track right from the get-go felt a little weird, to be honest with you. First free practice, I really didn't like the track. In fact, I think the layout, and we can get into this a bit more later, the layout wasn't really that great. It didn't flow too well, a lot of 90-degree turns, but the dirt was awesome. And it had that East Coast style dirt, super tacky, lots of ruts. I always seem to do well at those races. And, I just started putting laps together really well. In the free practice, the timing and scoring was out. So no one had any idea what our lap times were in the free practice. But, just based on kind of how quickly I guess I was going around people, I knew I was riding well. And then first time practice, just found some lines that were different than what other people were doing. So with the 90-degree turns, a lot of the guys were taking that extra little bit of time to maybe swing a couple feet wider, get in the rut, and really try to seat bounce and double into the section to start the rhythm. And what that would do is not only was that difficult because the ruts were getting really gnarly on that first jump, but it would set you up on the main rhythm line that everyone was trying to do. And so you're in the ruts the whole time. My thought process from the first practice was, all right, I'm just going to basically beeline it straight across this 90-degree turn, aim straight towards the first single, and just scrub roll the first single, and then start doubling. That way, right away, I'm on a different rhythm option. And I did that.
And you were the first one to do that.
I was the only one to really do it all day. I think Mooskin started doing it at the end of the main. For some reason, no one really caught on to it, and obviously it worked. It was just kind of thinking outside the box a little bit and rolling into a section you might think is slow, but in these situations, it really wasn't. And the biggest thing for me is it was repeatable laps that I could just go out there and spin laps and be comfortable. Meanwhile, everyone else was putting in these I call them Hail Mary laps in time qualifying. And I knew that, people wouldn't be able to ride those laps consistent. So first time qualifier, I was the fastest in B group. I don't know where that put me overall. Second time qualifier, I was able to get a little bit more of a clear track. I was able to ride a little bit more aggressive. I still didn't put together any laps that I was really pumped with, because when you're that much faster than everyone in the B group, you just end up running into the back of people a lot. So it was frustrating, but at the same time, it's a good frustration because you have the speed. It's not like I'm out there feeling like a fish out of water. At least I was fast, I was aggressive, and just kept running into the back of people. So I was fastest in B group by a second and a half, maybe. That put me 18th overall, which might just be the best I've ever qualified on a 450.
So let me back up for a second. Let's back up for a second, because as I was trying to follow time qualifying, um, the timing and scoring wasn't working, and I was like, I texted you in between the two, I think, Group B1 and Group B2, and I was like, hey, how did you do? There's no times posted. There was nothing that was working for some reason. Was
Oh,
that
really?
something that? Yeah, yeah, and I was trying it on the app, and I was trying it on like the actual desktop site, and I don't know what was going on. I had
Oh,
internet, everything else was working. I was getting the stream, um, but
now
when
that I
I
think of it, in between the first and second time qualifier, they had the skid steer out and they dug a hole in the takeoff of the finish line and dug out the tube that the timing and scoring runs across. So there was definitely an issue with it. Now that I think of it, and in fact,
ah
the scoring tower where you can usually see your name on the top five, that wasn't working until the night show. So
Okay,
there
so
was an
yeah,
issue.
I was wondering about that. So there definitely was because, and it took when the Group B first qualifier finished, it was a good amount of time, and they went right into the KTM Junior race. It went through all of that, and it still hadn't posted the results. I want to say it wasn't until they started the 250 second qualifier that they posted the results from the Group B 450. So
Huh.
yeah, I mean that's strange. It seems like they've had some issues with the timing scoring,
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
transponders or something. But I was wondering if you had like were you aware after that first qualifier where you stood?
After the first one, no. After the second one, yeah. Um, my mechanic was getting the times on his phone, or he was getting them somehow. So I was seeing them on the pit board. And regardless, I mean, like a weekend like last weekend in Daytona, I knew I was struggling, and I knew I would have been, on the verge of possibly not even making the night show. That's how bad I was feeling. Where this weekend, you know, um, and I was just riding aggressive, and I felt like it was my night. But sometimes this is kind of what I boil it down to: is it for some reason on the days that I qualify the best, when I get on the line for the heat race or on the LCQ or when I'm out there during the night, that is when I'm the most nervous. And I know it's such backwards thinking. You would think I should have confidence because I'm riding well, but all it does is make me more nervous.
Why? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I think I just put the pressure. Obviously, I just put the pressure on myself because I expect myself to do so well, and I start looking at it instead of looking for an opportunity to do well. I think my mind goes to, um, let's not throw this night away and waste a night. So,
Hmm.
like that very simple thought of just twisting that thought in my head from let's just go out and make this happen to don't waste this night. I guess that could be the difference.
So I mean, we've talked about the mental side of this ad nauseum so many times. We've had guests on who specialize in it. What are you doing to practice on race day? Because that it's obviously it's frustrating for you, um, and it's frustrating for all your supporters because we're like, we know you're obviously capable, you have the speed, and it wasn't like you were just putting in fluke fast laps. You had consistently good lap times,
Right.
um, and you were faster than several guys, at least four guys in Group A. So are you putting any of your knowledge to practice on race day, or is it just kind of you get overwhelmed and you get caught up in the day and you kind of put that on the back burner? Like
No,
how what?
in the past they would have been put on the back burner, but the past few years, especially since I've started working with Ramsey, and you know, I focus on it all throughout the day, and it takes constant conscious thought of, okay, it's just a thought, let it go, just a thought, let it go, and try to like just stay in the moment. But the problem is, even that in itself is exhausting because these thoughts pop into my head, and then I have to tell myself, all right, get rid of that thought. This could happen 20 times in a minute. And I'm just constantly catching myself having these negative thoughts. So at least,
Do you feel like you
I'm
might need
recognizing.
like some sort of distraction? Like, how could you mitigate that? Because do you have too much time? Are you thinking too much? How could we get it to where those thoughts don't even enter your head because you're not even aware of them.
Yeah, a couple people have said in the past couple weeks have had the idea of just, putting headphones in and listening to music, and I think I keep saying, yeah, that's a good idea, and really it is a good idea, and I just haven't done it. I think I think that might be the way to go. Shoot, I even put on a podcast. I don't know, something so that my mind is honed in and listening to something. A podcast might even be better because I'd be, really focusing in on what I'm listening to, not just like music. Sometimes it can just be playing in the background and you're not thinking about it. Um, the biggest thing, yeah, is it's just that downtime. And then that downtime when you're sitting on the gate before the race, even if it's just a minute, 2 minutes, it feels like an eternity. And I have too much time to sit there and get in my own head.
Yep.
And as soon as
I'll
the
tell
gate
you what.
drops, usually I'm okay. I have my moments, of course, but this weekend I really was fine. Once the gate dropped, both starts were terrible, but I came from the pretty far back in both races, and I rode aggressive. I rode well during the race itself. So the fact that I'm that nervous beforehand, obviously it's frustrating. We talk about it every single podcast.
Yeah, you know what I noticed this year that I don't know if I've noticed in years past is like Chase Sexton was a good example of this. He was on the line. He has AirPods and he's listening to music. He's kind of like zoned out. I don't know if I've seen that before. I think it was in Daytona that I first noticed it. And then this past race, I think Austin Faulkner too. He had headphones on and he was kind of zoned out. And that was unique. I remember seeing it and I was like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, a lot of guys do it. James Stewart used to do it. He used to have big Beats headphones on before he'd go out.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's definitely what I would do. And I find that like personally, you really can kind of limit distractions if you get into either whatever it is, if it's music, if it's podcast, if it's a movie, just having that background noise, or something to keep your mind kind of busy. I think it'd be worth a shot. I think you get into your own head too much. Really, and I think you'd probably agree with that.
Yeah, and throughout the day, there was, I was in constant conversation with people. I had a lot of fans coming by and talking. I didn't really have a free moment. So during the day, I was okay. And then, it was the night show where I thought I was, distancing myself from that was an advantage and that I should be focusing, but really that just gives me the time to think. So yeah, maybe for this weekend, I'll bring my headphones and just toss some music on and see how that works. Because for me, it sucks to feel that good in time qualifying, and even knowing in time qualifying that I had more in the tank because I never really got a clear lap without running into anybody. That could have very well been a top 15 night, and to not make the main event on a night like that is super frustrating. And in comparison, having a night like that as opposed to a day like in Daytona where I qualified 40th, and my heat race was a little better and my LCQ was a little bit better, but I still think I only got 8th or 9th in that LCQ. I walked away from that night taking that as a positive, like, holy cow, I almost didn't make the night show and I progressively got better and better. So I was happy with the way I pushed through that. This weekend, missing the main by like 3 seconds and by 2 spots, I was way more pissed off. And I still am as we sit here and talk about it. But it's a good type of pissed off, I guess. I'm just motivated and ready to go. And the bike is so darn good. And I just don't want to waste opportunities, but I can't look at it that way either, because that's a negative way to look at it.
Yeah. And it comes back to, what'd you finish, 5th or 6th in the LCQ?
6th.
But this season, we've said it a million times, like, look at who's in your LCQ, right? You had who's in front of you, Michael Essie,
Chisholm.
He's practically a shoe-in. Chisholm, he's a top 15 guy.
LeMay.
So yeah. I mean, so, and who rounded out? Endicnap, right?
Yeah.
LeMay, he crashed out, or he didn't make it.
No, LeMay made it. Alex Ray crashed out.
Alex Ray did. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's a talented pool. And I know you still get a lot of shit for, oh, hey, make a main and then you could talk or whatever. But I don't think anybody really appreciates the amount of talent that's even in the LCQ. It's pretty wild, and I know we've talked about it ad nauseum. This is the highlight of the season, is how stacked the class is. It's not getting any easier. It's only going to get harder. You still have some fast guys that are out, right? You had Malcolm Stewart back into the mix. There's another guy who's not riding right now. I know we just threw Mike Alessi in a couple weeks ago, so he's now a variable. And if he's not making it, you could bet your bottom dollar he's going to make it through an LCQ unless something crazy happens. So really, those spots, those 4 remaining spots, it's such a premium. It's ridiculous. If you don't get the start, it's all over. There's not enough time in an LCQ to make all those passes.
No, and this was a weekend where, I thought it could have very well happened out of the heat race. And I got 11th in the heat from but pretty much dead last. And I caught up to, it was Brees and Gardner were 9th and 10th, caught up to them at the end. So they were right there. And that's frustrating because, to get that close in the heat, to know if I just got the start, I would have been just fine. Man, because I tell you what, those LCQs are, and Carmichael says it a lot too. He goes, I've been in a few LCQs in my career, and he goes, they were the most nerve-wracking races I've ever been in.
Yeah, because you have the pressure of knowing that if you don't make it, if you're not in the top 4, you're out. It's it. Weekend's over. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to mentally battle through that. But so I want to go back to your starts for a second, because, and we've talked about this before, I'm not sure if we've addressed it on the podcast, but we know you're capable of getting out front. We know your bike's capable. We know you're capable. We know those Maxxis tires hook up. So you can get out front. But then it looks like when it comes to crunch time, you're starting and you're kind of rolling into the first corner and you're deep in the pack. Now, you and I talked about this offline about you're having to do a little clutch management. You're almost getting too much traction. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because, I'm watching you qualify 18th and heat race rolling into the first corner. I'm like, what the heck is this kid doing?
Yeah. So, we made 2 changes simultaneously, and we took out some type of washer or something that's in the hydraulic clutch that is supposed to make the clutch grab a little bit quicker so it doesn't feel as if it's slipping. And we put the 120 rear on the bike instead of a 110. So it's a slightly wider tire. So you have, the clutch grabbing a little harder, the tire hooking up probably a little bit better because it's wider, right? And I think we did this the same weekend or one weekend apart. And ever since then, I've been struggling with the starts. So, it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just a matter of me getting used to it. And what people don't understand is, everyone says just hold it on a little longer into the turn. It doesn't work like that. The start is won or lost in the first 10 feet of the gate, especially in Supercross. You can't make up for it. If you mess up the first 10 feet of the gate, you're done for. Yeah, you could hold it on and try to go in, bang bars with people into the first turn, but you're not gonna be top 5 in that start. You're basically screwed. So,
well, we've seen the consequence of doing that in the first couple races of the season. Was it Politelli or, right? We've seen what happens when you do that.
Right. So for me, I'm smart. I'm not gonna do anything stupid. I'm either gonna be top 5 in that start, or I'm going to be smart about it coming into the first turn. So what would happen, and this has happened the past few weeks, my reaction time's always good. That's never been an issue. But the problem is my clutch release has been a little too quick, and my front end comes up. It's not like I'm wheeling into the moon like, a B or C rider would do, but it's just enough to where you got to pull your clutch in for a second. And guess what? You pull your clutch in for a second, and both guys on either side of you have a wheel on you, and you're done for. To get a good start in the pros, it has to be one smooth clutch release without double clutching, without backing off the throttle. It really has to be perfect to even stand a chance.
Now, how much of this is a function of it being a hydraulic clutch now on the Cowie?
Well, my starts were great at the beginning of the season. And that's frustrating too, because at the beginning of the season, coming in, so cold without the seat time, I wasn't really ready to get the good starts. I guess it was good because it expedited my, like, I just had to be thrown into the mix, which was nice. But now that I'm like, you know, ready to make main events every weekend and I'm not getting the starts, it's really pissing me off. The hydraulic clutch, though, I will say some people have complained about it on the Cowies, but I think that's BS because unless my bike's doing something different, that hydraulic clutch is awesome. And the feel is equally as good as a cable clutch.
I'll tell you, I mean, that was one of the big advantages of the KTM's back in the day. That's all I ran, hydraulic clutches. And I think it's just a matter of what you get used to. If you're practicing starts for 5, 6, 7, 8, however many years with a cable clutch, and then you're thrown onto a hydraulic clutch, then that could be a little bit of a learning curve. But
The biggest difference I would say is just that, the feel is maybe you could argue that it might be a little bit less of a feel only because the hydraulic clutch is so easy to pull in, where the cable clutch is harder to pull in. So I guess you do have a little more feel of it. But ultimately it's the same clutch release. You would release the clutch the same way. So that should become muscle memory. But it's also due in part to, when I believe that I belong up front in these races, sometimes I get a little anxious on the start and I want to get the start so bad that when that gate drops, I want to explode and I just drop the clutch a little too fast. And you know what I've been thinking too is when that gate's been dropping, my chest has been coming up a little bit. And I'll always teach my students, don't move your chest from that crossbar pad until you're 3/4 of the way down that straightaway. And, even if I'm not coming straight up vertical and extending my arms all the way, but I watched my starts back this weekend and you could see my chest come up from that crossbar pad just a few inches, and that could be enough to do it too. You just got to be perfect.
You think it's just a function of getting antsy and
yeah, and
kind of
maybe I have to remind myself of that on the line. Just chest down, chest down, chest down. Just no matter what, keep that chest down. The ruts coming out of the gates have been a little tricky the past couple weekends, and maybe I've let that get in my head as well. And
do you think you could lower your hole shot device a little bit, or is it already pretty low?
Oh, it's super, super low. And that was something I struggled with in the past, and we made that adjustment. My hole shot device wasn't low enough in the past, but we definitely have that set up well. Everything's how it should be. It's just I got to get back to doing what I was doing the first few rounds when I was, what they do is in the third time qualifier every round, they drop the gate. So you actually get the practice to start. The first 7 races of the season, I hole shotted every single one of those time qualifiers. And yeah, that's just granted, that's just B group, but there's a lot of fast guys in B group. And I hole shotted every single one by a long shot. And I was so confident in my starts. So I just got to get that back.
Now, no press day last week or the week before. That's obviously a big variable. I mean, your best finishes have been on days where you've ridden press. So
yep.
We've started talking about it before the season even started, and it's clearly manifesting into some tangible results now. That press day is critical.
Yeah.
Do you have any other ones on the board?
No, I don't yet. I'm trying, and I try every week. And the way it works is the factory teams get scheduled at the beginning of the season, so from Anaheim 1 which press days you're going to be doing. And for the privateers, for whatever reason, it's more based on the local news station schedule. So Feld is hesitant on booking us until the week prior, so they have an idea of what the local news is going to be like. And this is something we've talked about in the meetings with Feld on Saturday mornings, is that shouldn't matter. They should schedule us at the beginning of the season. If the media shows up, great. If they don't, somebody will be there taking photos, and it won't be a total waste of time, but it's just got to be more fair. And that's
what if they did. It seems like, what if they did a lottery system? Like, okay, they just draw, out of the however many guys are going to be entering the weekend, they draw however many names, and you're limited to what, 5 a year, 3 a year, who knows. whatever they determine. But it almost seems like it should be like a lottery system more than it is just, oh, I'm going to pick this person, this person, this person.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
don't really know the process at the moment. Uh, it's really hard to say. I mean, I've emailed them every week to remind them, hey, I'll be there. I'll try to change my flight. Just let me know. And yeah, I haven't been able to get in since Detroit. And coincidentally, well, coincidence or not, the two press days that I've done are the two main events that I've made. So
Right.
yeah, on a track like
So the
this,
proof is
it
in the
was
pudding on that one.
yeah, on a track like this, it wasn't as big of a deal, just because there was no big rhythms. But still, I mean, it was. I'm sure it still would have helped. There's no question it would have helped. And
Yeah, even just getting that little bit of seat time and additional comfortability with the track and figuring it all out.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Now, I want to talk about the track a little bit. And one thing Ricky Carmichael made reference to, I think it was Ricky, was they were talking about the whoops, and they made a specific reference to the whoops being a little bit different this week because they were built by a bulldozer as opposed to a skid steer. And that's something the average fan probably wouldn't pick up on ever, but it could make a big difference on how the whoops ride and how they're shaped and what the actual condition is on the track. Is that something that you perceive? Did you know? I guess when they're built by a bulldozer and there's like a little bit less maneuverability, less precise or less precision in the machine, they tend to be a little more rolly, a little less steep, maybe more spread out. Is that something that you perceived?
Yeah, well, I don't think they, to my knowledge, I didn't think they were ever building them with the skid steer. Every time I see them build them, they're usually with like a wheel loader, which is, and I don't even know if that's what it's called, but which is also a giant machine. Um, maybe it has definitely,
Maybe that's what he said. I do not remember him saying they were built by a bulldozer. I don't remember what the comparable other machine was that they usually build them with, but he did make reference that they were built differently this week.
yeah. So with the wheel loader, I mean, you definitely have more maneuverability with the bucket. So I don't think they build them with the skid steer. I think they just use the wheel loader. So my guess is that, and this week, yeah, I didn't see a wheel loader. I just saw um, a big dozer. So with the dozer, your only way to maneuver that blade is up and down. I mean, you might have a little bit of an angle tilt with it, but not much. So with that being said, the whoops are maybe spaced out a little bit more. They're a little bit more rounded rather than peaky walls, which I personally like. But dude, I tell you what, the way they broke down, it didn't matter because that really long set, the way they cupped out, it made them really really steep. Anyways, they were
So
pretty gnarly.
I wanted to ask you because unfortunately you didn't get a lot of TV time, and by it you didn't get a lot. I mean, you weren't on TV, so I didn't get to see even in qualifying really. Were you blitzing the whoops or were you jumping them?
No, I was blitzing them, and I felt really good blitzing them. And the set after the finish line and qualifying, everybody started jumping, and somebody said that Tomac was skimming, and then I was skimming. So there's two or three guys maybe doing it, and I was skimming them really really fast. So if you look at the segment times, that segment I was one of, I think I was top 12, top 10 out of all the 450s in that segment. Even from the inside without much of a run in, I was skimming across the tops, and I felt darn good doing it. But it didn't take long for them to really get messed up. Even in the heat race, I was talking to Alessi before the LCQ. He was telling me about how he was talking about how Dean Wilson pushed him off the track, and then we started talking about the whoops. And I was like, how good were the whoops the first 3 laps? They were amazing, huh? And he goes, yeah. And then lap 4, I came around and they were totally destroyed. I'm like, yeah, it didn't take long. First couple laps, I'm like, these things are fresh. And then all it takes is a few laps, all 20, 22, 450s eating them up. And they're pretty scary to hit. But they became really hard to jump too. I didn't want to jump them because, and I think we talked about this with Daniel a little bit on the other podcast, is that they get cupped out so bad that all of that dirt is now being moved to that bottom part of the whoop. So when you try to jump and downside, you're hitting that pile of dirt, and then you have to try to push through that pile of dirt and jump off the next lip.
Yeah.
So he said that some of the guys will try to overshoot that and land into the face so that they skip that little pile of dirt. It's extremely difficult to jump to a set of whoops that are like that.
Yeah, that's super technical. Yeah. Now, how else did you like the track? It seems like we've gotten our fair share of big long starts into 90-degree turns, and you hear from the master himself, Ricky Carmichael, designer of some of these tracks. He talks about how he doesn't like the sweep, the 90-degree turns. Nobody really likes him as a racer. What do you think about this one? I think the radius was a little shallower, so it wasn't as tight. Was this one good, indifferent, bad? How'd you feel?
I'm sort of indifferent to the first turn, just because I'm smart. I'm not going to be the one that goes flying into the pavement or off the track or whatever's there. But you see that happen quite often. I'll be the guy that backs down before I go flying off the track. What I have an issue with is the fact that there was 9 turns on this track and 6 of them were 90-degree turns. So you basically have 3 turns to pass in. You're not passing in a 90-degree turn. I don't care if, it's a C-class rider in front of you. There's not a whole lot you can do. And that was the situation I found myself in the LCQ. There's a slower rider in front of me, but my passing opportunity was the whoops, which, if that slower rider is kind of bouncing from side to side in the whoops, it makes it a little scary to go around them. And then you had 3 bull turn opportunities. So
one of which was like a dual lane.
Right. Which the outside during the night became useless. So you had to follow through that as well. Yeah, just made for single file racing, which happens sometimes. I think it could be avoidable. Just looking at that track map, you knew it would be like that. So
I'm encouraged by the Seattle track map, though. That one looks a little bit better. It looks like we have a wide variety of terrain, good rhythm sections, bunch of 180s finally.
Oh, good. I haven't seen
looks
it.
Looks like, well, check it out. I'm sure you're going to love the sand section. If it's anything like the Daytona sand, you're in for a treat because it's about twice as long.
Well, there was supposed to be a sand section this weekend, and enough riders complained that they didn't put it in. So
you're probably going to run into that scenario next weekend too, because I'm telling you, that sand section is like an entire rhythm long. It's stupid.
Oh my gosh. Especially if there's a chance of rain. I doubt they would do that. And I think there is a chance of rain. My poor bike. My bike can't take another mud race.
I know.
Poor thing. I'll be selling that thing for $1,000 at the end of the season.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I mean, hopefully history doesn't repeat itself. We'll all keep our fingers crossed for some fair weather in Seattle. Nobody wants to see another mud race like that, I don't think.
The temperature looks mild, so that's promising. I saw rain in the forecast, but it didn't look like, knock on wood, it didn't look like anything torrential just yet. So, yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, right. We will see. Either way, it's going to be rutted, I would imagine. I raced there. It was dry a couple years ago, and I want to say in 2017, and it was gnarly how rutted it was, which I don't have a problem with that. That I can work with.
All right.
Where do you want to start?
Let's. I think it would be appropriate to talk about how Austin Forkner isn't dead.
Yeah.
So we talked about this briefly before the podcast. I mean, it just seems like some of these guys, and Cooper Webb had the same kind of luck this weekend. When it's your night, it's your night, or it's your season, it's your season.
Yep.
I mean, when you see this crash from Austin Forkner, not only was he extraordinarily lucky that he didn't hurt himself, but he got up and charged from what was it, last to a 5th place finish in that heat, which was unbelievable to me. And couple things that are noteworthy about that crash. One is, I honestly watching it, I don't know how he did that. I don't know how he blew it so bad. He was well out in front. It just maybe a miscalculation. It looks like maybe he kind of like
I think he just
swept off to the right a little bit.
I think he just lost track.
Maybe lost a little traction.
I think he just lost track of where he was on the jump face. Because it looked like when he took off, he was super confident in what he was doing. And then as soon as he got in there, he's like, holy cow, I'm way further right than I thought.
Yeah. I also think it's crazy that the kid who almost wiped him out and ran him over was the same kid who got ran over last week in Daytona, which is wild. And I'll tell you what, man, when what is his name? Shaw?
Yeah, yep. Who's been
Um,
riding really well, by the way.
yeah, dude, I'll tell you what, that crash in Daytona, I thought he was dead. Like that was one of the gnarlier looking
Mm-hmm.
crashes I've seen in a while. I mean, that his head got whipped by a bike. And you have flashbacks to bikes into the face are generally not good outcomes, right? I mean, look at Weston Pike. He didn't get landed on, Shaw didn't get landed on, but he took a big impact to the helmet, and it looked like his head snapped, and it didn't look good. I was shocked to see him get up and walk away from that. So
Yeah,
I was glad that.
God, that's the worst feeling too. Like, crashing in the first turn when you're either, don't even have to be getting the whole shot, but when you're up there in the first turn and you go down and you just know it's coming. So as you're crashing, the only thing you're worried about is, oh, please, your eyes. Sometimes my eyes will even be closed. Oh, just please, no one hit me. No one hit me. No one hit me. And it feels like forever. The whole crash feels like 20 seconds instead of half a second. And that's such a bad feeling. But Faulkner, I mean, he was lucky that his it was pretty cool.
How many times have we seen guys hit the face of a jump and just be done?
As the bike flopped over Faulkner, he stuck his elbow out and elbowed the bike off of him. It looked like. So he was lucky. And I don't know if that was a conscious decision he made. Instead of putting his hand out to push it away, like he put his elbow out so he wouldn't get a finger or something stuck in the chain or the spokes.
Yeah, it was just all luck. I mean, it really was. That's how it's this kid's season.
Yep.
He got up, and it's amazing to me that he was able to get up and just act like it never even happened. I mean, that looked like a crash that would rattle the normal person. It didn't faze him whatsoever. He got up and he was absolutely ripping, and that to me is remarkable because it says like you're not affected by those types of adversities. And
he rode really composed too. It's not like he panicked once he got up. He just put in hard laps and made good, smart passes. I tell you what,
exactly.
he has super impressed me this year as far as the whole mental side goes, because he was a completely different rider last year. He's always had the speed. There's no question about that. But watching him last year, he was a head case when it came to that. He would make a mistake. It would lead to another. It would lead to another. He just seems confident in his abilities to the point where he can let the mistake go and not panic.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a champion. I mean, how many races are left in that? 2, 3?
Yeah, I think 2, right? Wasn't
3.
That 7?
You'd have Vegas, Nashville.
Oh, right.
And MetLife.
Yep.
And I think that would be it. So, and he has a 26-point lead. So he could potentially wrap it up in a race or two, I think.
Yeah, he's got a full race lead.
Don't take our word for it, guys. We are the podcast that does not know any statistics.
Yeah. If you want stats, go elsewhere. Google it. Yeah. No, but yeah, no, you're right. I mean, and I'll tell you, when the main event played out, what did you think about that? Obviously, Faulkner takes it. Sexton's in the mix, and you had Oldenburg in the mix, Cooper in the mix. Poor Alex Martin. He had a bit of bad luck.
Yeah, I was just texting Alex before I got on the podcast. I was making fun of him for. Did you see him in his heat race? What happened, or did you miss that? Because the announcers,
I might have missed that.
The announcers didn't really pick up on it. But if you watch it back, when he got passed by, I think it was Justin Cooper, he went to go double, and his back tire hit when he wasn't expecting it to, and he almost looped it out. Like he launched and cased the triple. And I texted him, I said, I got flashbacks of when he looped out on a Dragon's Back a couple years ago, and he was cracking up. And then something happened to him in the first turn in the main. But that main event, back to what we were talking about, the main event really boiled down to that long set of whoops. And you saw Forkner had a line right away that worked. And I know Chase Sexton talked about it. It was either in his post-race interview or it might have been in the press conference. He said it took 6 or 7 laps for Forkner to find the line. And so that was the difference, right? It's hard to do, but Forkner had a 3.33 that he tried right away and it worked and got out to a 3 or 4 second gap right away. And that was pretty much it.
That's all she wrote.
That is all she wrote. But Justin Cooper was good too. Bad starts, which is not common for Justin Cooper, but in the heat, he made a charge on the last lap where I didn't think he stood a chance of winning that heat. Came out of nowhere and won the heat. And then in the main, put another last lap charge and got Oldenburg for 3rd.
Yeah, I'm impressed the way he's riding this year for sure. Yeah.
Can we, you know who I'm thinking about as we talk about sort of rookie riders in whoop sections? Have you been keeping your eyes on Thomas Covington at all? Or how familiar with him are you?
Is he on Husky?
Yeah. Yep. So he
vaguely familiar.
I grew up racing him. I was a year older than him or so, maybe 2 years. He went to the MXGP stuff and he's been there his whole career. He's got wins. He hasn't won a championship, but he's definitely, again, stats don't listen to us. We could be way off, but he's like a top 3 MXGP MX2 rider. Got a ride to come over here. And he is just, the poor kid is struggling. He got a 2nd or 3rd place start in his LCQ and straight up faded to like 9th place. And I feel for him because I think what I've kind of heard through the grapevine is that he's struggling with the feel of how stiff the suspension is. And maybe he's compensating for that by going a little bit softer, but then he's giving up the bike setup that he should have to, have it work in the whoops. I don't know. I wonder who his riding coach is because I'd love to be able to work with him and just help him get through a whoop section. Because watching him hit those whoops in the LCQ is painful to watch.
I'll have to keep an eye out next time.
Because he's such a good rider, and he just straight up faded from 2nd or 3rd back to 9th or so in that LCQ. And he's on a factory Husky.
Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah. It just goes to show you, like, Supercross is such a specific skill set. Because he could...
Yeah, that's exactly right.
There's no doubt he'll smoke me on an outdoor track, but he's just got to get used to the Supercross thing. And I am so surprised that the team being on factory Husky that he doesn't... I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's in California, if he's at Baker's riding with those guys, but you would think he'd have somebody working with him every single day on those whoops. But
better email somebody.
But what do I know? I mean, even, Justin Cooper looks a little bit weak he was good in the whoops this weekend because he had a really, really good jump line. And he was actually skimming them better than I've seen him in the past. But Justin Cooper is one that was a little bit shaky in the whoops as well. Anytime there was a big set, you could kind of count him out. And I think it's just a confidence thing and just getting used to them and building confidence over the years. And then again, one little crash can basically put your confidence right back to square one.
Right. Yeah, that kind of brings up something that I've thought about, especially recently, because I just watched that documentary, Free Solo, the Alex Honnold documentary, where he free climbs El Capitan without any ropes. And
Jesus.
I know it's absolutely insane, but we talk about the mental game and all these strategies you can use to, think positively, get yourself primed and charged and mentally prepared for the task at hand, whether it be Supercross, whether it's, positivity in daily life and all that stuff. So there are tactics you can use to polish and to sharpen those skills. But speaking about the Free Solo documentary, there was like, this guy obviously does the most insane things you could possibly do, right? Climbing without any sort of protection up a 3,000, almost 4,000 foot sheer granite wall. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of phenomenal rock climbers in the world, but what the hell sets this guy apart? Like, what is it about him that he can do that? And so obviously real scientists are asking that question. So they put him in an MRI, and then they exposed him to like different stimuli that would emulate a fear response or whatever. And they showed on the documentary, they called him back. They're like, yeah, we got your test results. And your results are really weird. Like your fear response mechanism in your brain, it doesn't work. It's like completely inactivated. And so like there is a clearly demonstrable physiological difference in his brain that allows him to, like, fear doesn't even enter the equation. It's like he physically cannot be afraid when he's on that wall. There's no, it's something about his brain, is actual physiology. There's no training for it. There's no priming it. There's no sharpening that skill. That's the way his brain works. And everyone else is impacted way more severely than he is. And so that's what separates him. And I'm wondering, like, I would love to see some of these guys up at the top. You know, we always talk about what separates the guys at the top. What separates the Webbs, the Tomeks, the Muskins, the Dungies, the Forkners, the guys who seem to be far and away better than everybody, even though everybody trains hard and everybody is talented and everybody has skills and everybody's trying their best. Nobody's out there to get second, third, fourth, fifth. Everybody's out there to win, you know, ideally.
Yep.
What is it? I would love to see one of these guys or a few of them actually do some tests to see if they have any physiological difference that allows them to be up there, that clicks another gear in their brain. Like, is it just their training? Is it just what they're doing as far as mental coaching? Or is there some sort of advantage that they have from like a physiological standpoint in their brain that you might not be able to see?
Yeah, and
that allows them to push.
Is that a learned ability, or is that something you're born with? Because are these guys,
or a combination?
Right? Is it so ingrained
can
in their
you amplify something?
Because for me, like, we start talking about racing, and my palms start to sweat, and I get the physiological symptoms of the fight or flight, I guess. So like, holy crap, I'm getting nervous. And my suspicion is that there's people out there that don't really get that feeling, or they turn it into a different feeling of adrenaline and just want to go, rather than myself with, you know, sweaty palms and weak legs. My attributes are all pretty much negative when I start thinking about that type of stuff. And I'd like to say that not everyone's like that. And that's something I work on all the time. But yeah, that's super interesting to think about. Super interesting.
But then, you know, it's almost like a double-edged sword. Like, do you even want to know? Because if you were to find out that, you know, Cooper Webb or Austin Forkner, oh yeah, they're up top because they have a mechanism in their brain that doesn't allow them to feel pain, or it doesn't allow them to succumb to pressure. It's like something is in their brain that you can see and demonstrate. Would that hurt everybody else to know that? Like, or would it inspire people to work harder? You know, it could go either way. Some people can look at it and be like, oh, well, of course he's up at the top. I'll never beat him. I don't have that, you know?
Yeah.
Or it could be like, I'm going to do everything I possibly can to show this kid, like, it doesn't matter. I'll take it anyway. So it'd be interesting to see. But I know there is the T-type personality, right? So the people are into action sports, like you and I and everybody else involved in motocross, supercross, mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, like those guys who and girls who have the personality type for adrenaline fixes, and, you know, they're not averse to risk. Like that's a personality type that's measurable, calculatable. You could see it. You know, obviously guys on the golf course typically aren't on the motocross track on the next day. It's your kind of personality types determine a lot of these things. So like there are physiological differences in the brain that could manifest into,
but there's levels
outcomes
to that as well, because think about it.
For sure.
I mean, and it could be looked at as lack of fear, or maybe just athletic, like belief in your athletic ability. But as you sit here and say that, I just think about like the things that I would do that most average people probably would never think about doing. Shoot, I don't even know what an example is. Like hop on a street bike and go 180 miles an hour. That doesn't scare me. Do a backflip off a cliff that's 70 feet tall. That doesn't scare me.
Right.
But at the same time, it's calculated. It's not like I'm going out there and I'm not fearful because I just don't care. It's that I just believe that I could do it. So I don't know. But then you compare me to other guys on the supercross track, and you know what's weird too is that I'm really good with it in every other aspect of life, but when it comes to racing my dirt bike, I have that brain block, because when it comes to other things, I don't seem to have that.
I think that's because it's learned, and maybe that's like a perfect example of giving the learned aspect credibility. Is that like you obviously don't exhibit those types of characteristics outside of Supercross, so why do you on a Supercross track? That to me says it's some sort of learned behavior, and you've had your fair share of incidences. Is it some subconscious flashback to crashes you've been landed on several times? You've had your share of get-offs. Last year you got pretty darn injured, punctured lungs, all this stuff like that. Whether you're thinking about those specifics or not, is that something that's subconsciously rattling around in your head, and it's manifesting itself into nerves? You've talked before about, hey, look, you panic when you get out front. Do you feel more comfortable subconsciously when no one's behind you that could land on you or take you out or anything like that? All those things kind of come into mind.
Yeah, that's a good point too. And I'm sure there's a culmination of that when I'm out there. Certainly, there's times when I make a mistake before a triple and I know that I'm going to have to go double single, and the first thing that flashes in my head is like the times that I've gotten landed on when I was a kid, and I'm like, oh shoot, here we go. So those thoughts are in the back of your head for sure. And maybe it's a culmination too of so many times that I've gone out there and not ridden well and gotten beat and not made main events, and that makes me nervous and not confident in itself, just remembering how many times it didn't go well. Whereas an amateur, I pretty much won most everything, especially locally. I was never beat locally, and I didn't really have that fear or lack of confidence or that the sweaty palms and the weak legs. I never got that feeling as an amateur ever. It wasn't until I remember turning pro that all started. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, you're also older, and like as your brain develops, you become a little bit more averse to risk, and you lose some of that kind of edge that teenagers have and all that. So like there's could be that component is getting older. And then you look at guys like Chad Reed and Justin Brayton, who are 35 and 37. Chad Reed just turned 37. Like that is crazy to me that they're still able to compete at such a high level. And that physiological difference between an 18-year-old kid and the 37-year-old man is immeasurable in them.
Yeah.
Like they're still out charging. They're still, it's funny
because the level that they're riding at is, you're risking, even both Reed and Brayton are both obviously super in control riders, and their technique is good. It's not like they're out there riding on the edge, but the level that they're riding at, being top 10 guys, is so ridiculously fast, and the consequences are so high that it is pretty amazing to be mid 30s going into your late 30s and to be able to kind of block that out. Those have got to be guys that have something going on that's a little bit different in their brains, I would think.
You'd think, just because the vast majority of people are exactly the opposite of that, or at least far enough away from that where you could point to it and say they're not normal. Yeah,
a good example of it too was I stayed and watched the amateur day on Sunday. So they raced in the stadium, super tamed down track compared to what we raced on, obviously, but still just the nerves of racing in a stadium and being on a supercross style track, which is new to a lot of those guys, you saw like I could see and feel the nerves of the riders out there, and you could tell that 99% of them were freaking out. And if you had put that track in their backyard, or if I'd seen them all race on another day or practice on another day where there's not that pressure, they would have mostly probably all ridden like different people. It's just that response causes different reactions in different people. I don't know. I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that, or part of the takeaway is not everything is insurmountable. There's definitely ways to channel it, to practice being better in those scenarios, to kind of hone your mind. And I think, for what it's worth, I think Jay Kavanaugh does an excellent job at conveying those types of positive messages from rack racing. So there's so many techniques and practices you could do to mitigate a lot of those negative feelings and thoughts and emotions and everything like that. But at the end of the day, who knows? I mean, there could be a physiological barrier somewhere.
Yeah, could be. Well, speaking of those barriers, what about Eli Tomac? Because he's a guy that shows signs of, sometimes you think he's superhuman. And I know we've been talking about it all season, but this race was another good example of it. Like, well, he's definitely human after watching a race like that.
So, first thing I'm going to say, again, KTM sweep.
Yeah.
So,
man, oh man.
That makes me a little warm and fuzzy because me and KTM. But no, I mean KTM sweep again. How many times has that happened? 3 already this season?
It seems like a lot.
Maybe more. So clearly they're doing something right. Whether it's just take the bike out of the equation, even if it's just from personnel management and getting the right guys on their machines. Their program is obviously working. So kudos to them, kudos to KTM. And look, I think the machine is the best one out there, personally. But if you look at Tomac, we talked about it on our preview episode before the season even started. Everybody agreed it was his to lose this season. I would have put money on Tomac winning the championship, his momentum after last Supercross season, winning the outdoor title. How is it that he comes into this Supercross season and he's where he is? That, I think, is baffling to a lot of people. And on the exact flip side of things, no one would have ever thought that Cooper Webb would be where he is. Side note, congratulations to Marvin Musquin. It's his first main event win of the season. I think it was a long time coming, and he earned it, and he rode well. And you like to see that too. So
yeah, he managed that
race. It'd be interesting to see. Sorry, I know I'm rambling. It'd be interesting to see how his momentum shifts now. So I think he's kind of gotten into, and this is just me completely speculating. I have no idea what he's thinking, but if it were me and I'm the top KTM guy and I'm seeing the rookie KTM team member be as successful as he is being in Cooper Webb, I'm starting to think, damn it, this is supposed to be my time. I'm the top guy on this team, So I'm interested to see how he uses this win to carry that momentum into the remainder of the season, because I wouldn't count Marvin Musquin out from the championship either.
No, and the tracks that are coming up I wouldn't be surprised if we see these three on the podium pretty consistently, because the tracks that are coming up are going to be rutted and gnarly and probably jumping whoops. And it seems like anytime there's a track that has jumping whoops, for some reason it seems like Baggett does well, because he usually just sticks to skimming them and can skim them no matter what. And then Musquin and Webb have kind of proven to be two guys that are really, really, really good at jumping through the whoops, especially Musquin. He's always been the man at doing that. But I mean, so do you know what the points are? Because I don't think it's that big of a gap at the moment.
Cooper Webb's at 243 and Musquin's at 229.
So what is that? Well, 15? What, 14?
You're asking the wrong guy.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah.
14.
Yeah. I mean, that's not much at all. And then Tomac's probably not too far behind that. Uh, I mean, anything
Yeah,
can happen.
he's 7 points back from Muskin.
As much as we think this is a Cooper Webb year, anything can still happen. The races that are coming up are probably going to be some of the more gnarly ones. There's some open stadiums, so anything could happen with that. I mean, who knows? Again, who knows?
It's funny as I'm looking at the points breakdown for the season. It's funny to me that the Tomac lack of performance is such a topic. Everybody talks about it. We harp on it, and I mean he's in a comfortable third. Like, he's not in a distant third. He's in a comfortable third, and I think that goes to show, like, when I think about this season and how it's played out so far, I think. And without looking at stats and going into everything, just from memory right now, if you were to ask me who's done better this season, Tomac or Roczen, I would say Ken Roczen has done better. But that's not what the points say. And Kenny didn't have too great of a weekend this past weekend, so that didn't help him very much. But he's in fourth in points. He's 6 back from Tomac. So Tomac's in a comfortable third. So I know we're harping on his lack of results, but he's still in the thick of things too. All it would really take is Cooper Webb has a disaster and Tomac rides, gets a little bit of momentum, or on the same token, if Muskin gets a little momentum and Webb starts to fold under pressure, you could see that shakeup.
Gosh, imagine if Tomac won this championship after all this, because you know how much shit he's getting from everybody. I know. I'd be like stuck on that. I've planned on.
But I'm wondering,
along.
that's got to be entering his thought process too. It's like, man, I'm in third. I'm in a comfortable third. I'm not distant third. The points aren't crazily spread out. It wouldn't take much really for him to edge out both of those guys.
No, I mean,
a couple bad rides from them and a couple great rides from him.
Cow. I'm watching the LCQ. Well, I'm just watching the whole race, but the 450 LCQ just took off. Oh my gosh, I slammed on the brakes halfway down that straightaway.
Yeah, I was wondering that. That's why I brought up those starts. I don't know what you do.
Yeah, but that's a point of, I'm going to put in slow motion here and see what the heck happened. But that was like an example of, I was either going to come into that turn probably buried in 6th or 7th and just be on the verge of crashing, or I was just going to let them go and tuck to the inside. I just didn't take the risk, I guess. But when you watch it on TV, it looks really bad.
We glazed over this, and I want to come back to it because of how crazy it was. Cooper Webb, when we're talking about Forkner, we're talking about, hey, and if it's your season, it's your season. How the hell did he ride out of clipping those 2 tough blocks?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
How did he do that?
That's a perfect example of when it's your season, it's your season.
Off the track, clips one of the ones on the side straightaway with the rear tire, propels him into the one on the actual apex of the turn. He lands that basically on his frame rails, and he just rides it out. He actually made the pass. I think he made the pass there, didn't he?
Which brings up a kind of a question here. I don't know if you and I talked about it at all before the podcast.
Did he cut the track? Is that what you're going to say?
Is that technically cheating? Because I know I've made a pass like that in LCQ where I ended up hitting the rider and taking us both out, which that very well could have happened with him if he didn't get on the brakes as well as he did. And I got docked for it. So, because they said I cut the track, and essentially I did exactly that. I got cross-rutted. I ended up skimming over a hay bale just like he did. I slammed the rider and we both went down.
It's funny you should say that and bring that up, because I thought it when it happened, and I didn't mention it to you the other day when we talked about it, but I thought the same thing. He did. It's when you look at it, it's not a big deal, and you wouldn't think that it would be a dock. Like he got a little squirrely. He rode it out. He didn't take anybody else out, but the precedent that's been set before is they have docked people for cutting the track like that, and or at least there's the rule you can't gain a position if you're off the track. So I don't know if they're counting that as he didn't gain the position until he was back on the track and then made the pass. Maybe that's how they get around that.
I don't know, because I'll say, like, that pass wouldn't have been possible if he had been on the track.
Correct. I would agree with that.
So that, I mean, that's a kind of a gray area there. Like, I wonder what Tomac was thinking, or if Tomac protested, and I don't know. That's a tough situation, because I don't know. I'd be curious that.
What lap did that happen?
I don't know.
That was like in the middle.
Trying to play it back now. Yeah,
I don't
it
remember.
was about in the middle of that main event, maybe 3/4 of the way through. And for those listening and maybe think he did it on purpose, he did not do it on purpose. That was
he would. No one.
That was clearly.
I would question
clearly a cross right. I've seen people already posting on social media that he did it on purpose. Obviously, those are people.
I don't know why
anyone
in his position would risk the potential of. I mean, talk about the tough blocks for people who don't understand. They're not as forgiving as they look. Like, it's amazing to me that he rode out of that.
Every time I've come in contact with a tough block, I've crashed. Like, they eat you up, and the fact that he was able to just blow right through that one, he got extremely lucky.
It was just luck.
And the fact that he didn't hit that camera, because that would have really been bad.
I know. It's like blind luck. He hit that thing. He landed on it as absolutely perfectly as you possibly could, because any other way you land on that thing, he's going down. You know, it's wild to me that he rode out of it. It's just complete luck that he rode out of that, in my opinion.
And isn't it amazing that a rider can do that? Take the turn, make a pass, which, he didn't really try to make the pass. It just sort of happened based on where he was. But then just continue your race as if nothing happened.
I know.
Like, you just basically launched yourself onto a camera, flew over a tough block, and 2 seconds later, he's on that third whoop, and he already forgot what just happened.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yep, that's what separates those guys apart, man. They can just they take everything that's in front of them and they just forget about the stuff that just happened. I think that's critical. Is you're always racing in front of you, and you could say that about, like, just racing into the future. Don't forget about everything that just happened. Race the line that you see. Race the jump that you see. Race the whoops you see. Race that turn. Don't think about the things that happened before.
Yep. Which it's easier said than done. I'm watching it back in slow motion right now. Man,
I think Ricky Carmichael posted, was it yesterday or today, him doing almost exactly the same thing. Do you see that Instagram post?
No. Who? Carmichael doing exactly the same thing?
Yeah.
Before or after it happened?
Oh, no. Like, because didn't Cooper Webb say, like, oh, that was an RC move, or that was such an RC moment, or something like that?
Oh, no, I don't know.
They had like a banter about it. It was kind of funny.
Man, shoot. I just clicked out of there. Darn it. Okay. Not going to be able to find it now. Man, he did everything perfect. He even, like, landed, and when he landed, he, like, tried to land in a wheelie so that he could blow through it. That tough block just so happened to be one that was more squishy than the other ones. Like, yeah, when it's your season, it's your season. In fact, when that happened, when I saw that happen, I'm like, I had the thought in my head, well, he's going to win the championship. I don't know. It just, when people get that lucky, and I don't really believe in luck, it just, and you wonder what that's a product of. Like, is it such a firm belief in yourself that you put off, like, that in energy that things can't go wrong? I don't know.
I would like to have seen his, like, the heart rate stats for that moment in the race to see how that affected him, like, physiologically. Because I would imagine, like, if that were me, you would see a dramatic spike in heart rate right there.
Yeah, and being that deep in the race, it'd be hard to recover from it. But I don't know. I doubt it affected him that much. Obviously, it didn't. I actually got it back up now. Once that happened, he turned and he hit the whoops pretty darn good too. So that just kind of tells you, like, he immediately recovered from that. Gosh, that's amazing.
Pretty remarkable. So what do you think for next weekend? Who do you got?
Where's that? Seattle. I'm gonna go Mooskin again, which is weird. I picked because I picked Tomac every single time, but I'm gonna go Mooskin, Webb, Tomac, 3.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't really know why, but I feel like
I agree with the Mooskin pick, and I'll tell you why. It's because of the momentum I think he's going to feel from this win. I think he needed that. It just like Cooper needed it in the begin, like a few races back when he started to hit his stride. I think Marvin is going to ride that consistency because I don't know Marvin, but from his race interviews for the past several years and just the way that the seasons have played out, he seems to be like a bit of a head case in that he can really get down on himself and he starts to second guess everything that he's doing. And you can see the shift. Like when he starts to ride some confidence, he starts getting results. I think that's what we're going to start seeing from him.
Yeah,
and I think that's my educated guess.
I think Seattle will suit his style as well. So that combined with the confidence boost of winning, I would not be surprised to see him win another one.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I think I like that. I think unless something catastrophic happens with Cooper Webb, he's on such a roll right now. I not to jinx it, I don't see him finishing off the podium anytime soon. To be honest with you,
no, because he didn't really light the world on fire this weekend, and he still got a what do you get? He got third. To still get a third on a night where he didn't really look like he was feeling it. Yeah, he's definitely Dungey-esque. I mean, yeah, he just looks solid. He didn't look like he was. I'm watching it as we speak. He didn't really look like he was trying. Neither did Baggett, though. Baggett, when he's on, he's on.
Yeah, he's kind of surprised me this season. I mean, he's always been pretty good, but I wouldn't have picked him to have as many podium finishes.
No, but he's been hot and cold too, because he's either been like literally contending for the win, or he's been like in 8th place.
Well, he had the ones that he's been in 8th place. Didn't he stall or something happened? I think the ones where he's finished farther down, there's been something you could point to specifically and say, oh yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
Am I
maybe.
right? I think so.
I don't know.
I don't know. Google
what do I know? Just Google it.
Google it. Blake Baggett consistency. Google.
Now,
oh yeah, right here. No,
this week it goes back to West Coast 250, right?
Yep.
So who do can you Google it?
Yeah. Who races in the West Coast again? The Adam kid. No, I think yeah, I would imagine that Cianciarulo.
He's pretty in control of that one, I think. But what do I know? And then they have Seattle. I think Denver's got to be west, right? Houston's west, and then Vegas. So I want to say they have 4 more. Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, I think that I have a gut feeling that both of these 250 titles are going to be wrapped up before it even gets to Vegas, which makes Vegas a little bit less exciting.
Yeah, that's probably a safe bet. We've been spoiled with Vegas 250 races.
Oh man,
in the last few years.
It's so fun to watch because even it could be, as long as the title's not clinched, it's still like you're on the edge of your seat because anything can happen. They're feeling the nerves in Vegas. It's crazy to watch, and man, some of the ones that we've had in the past, like I'll never forget watching Zach Osborne crash in the first turn and come back and pass Savatgy.
I know. That was probably the best one.
That was the loudest I've ever heard a crowd in my entire life. And Vegas obviously is an outside race. Typically when you're in a stadium, everything echoes and it's way louder. That place I thought was going to shake apart.
No kidding.
That was insanity.
That was insane. That really was insane. Yeah. Any other final thoughts here?
No, not really. We're 82 minutes in, so It's pretty solid. We're gonna try to have. I don't know what your availability is later in the week, Bryce, but we're gonna try to have the vegan cyclist on here, guys. So those of you that are into road biking stuff, we've talked to him. We're gonna have him on. Obviously, it's not gonna be a dirt bike. It's not gonna be one of the Supercross recaps, but that will be one to keep an eye out for. So I'm pretty excited about that.
And yeah, I am going to be around. We are going to do that with the vegan cyclist. And if anybody follows him, look, the name says it all. He's a vegan and he's a competitive cyclist. So not only are we going to talk to him about cycling and training and something that AJ and I are both involved with, but I'm going to probe him on the vegan thing because I don't get it. And I think it'll be a very interesting conversation because I'm interested to hear about his philosophy on veganism, if it's a ethical thing, if it's a moral thing, or if it's strictly a diet thing, if it's an environmental thing. I'm very curious about this. So that'll be a fun episode. I can't wait for that.
I didn't even think about diving into that conversation with him, which is hilarious. But gosh, I don't have not the responsibility. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but I could not commit to that lifestyle. Discipline. Certainly do not have the discipline.
Yeah, I don't have the ability to be hungry all the time.
No, I follow him on his Instagram stories are hilarious, and so many times he's fasting because he can't find a good restaurant to eat at that will serve a vegan meal, and so he won't eat. Yeah, man, I can't do that.
Hey, there's definitely a lot to be said about intermittent fasting and fast imitating diets and all that stuff. And there's a lot of science to back up the benefits of that. But
yeah, I'm doing it today.
We're
recording right now. It's 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. I haven't eaten since yesterday at 9 o'clock. So I'm on a long one. Not by choice.
You know what? I'm going to get into this with him also. I am reluctant to pair times when I'm sleep deprived, and I classify anything under 7 hours of sleep. I'm sleep deprived. Like I know my body. I know how I work. I know when I'm peaked. Like for me, and you and I both had some pretty shitty schedules for sleep this past weekend. So I had 2 4-hour sleep nights that damn near freaking killed me. So I'm just like still recovering from all that, and I just can't mess with fasting and also being grumpy from being overtired. Like those are the 2 most deadly combinations I could think of for me. So I'm all on board for fasting, but it's got to be in the right time. I think what they recommend, like maybe we'll get into this with him. I think that at least once a quarter, you should go 4 to 5 days with a pretty strict fast, and that seems to boost your immunity, boost recovery. It sends your body into basically a huge recovery mode. So there's something to be said about it. And even the intermittent fasting, who is that? The guy that they just posted I think he's a Cleveland Browns lineman, maybe. I don't know. I saw it on Instagram yesterday. He lost a ton of weight, and he went from like kind of like a typical NFL linebacker build to now he's like absolutely shredded, ripped, huge, and he does a lot. He said his 2 keys were he doesn't eat breakfast, and I think he went keto. So he's not eating any carbs. But it was funny to see, like, those are his 2 biggest recommendations. Don't eat breakfast. And
man, that's
we'll get into all that
from what you learned growing up.
I know. It's crazy how much counter research there is now to everything we used to think we knew.
Yeah, I tell you what though, as far as physique, I have been intermittent fasting a lot. Again, whether it's by choice or just the fact that I'm too lazy to cook anything in the house and I don't feel like going to drive anywhere. And mid-season, I don't work out in the gym. So from December to May, I don't do a push-up, I don't do a pull-up, I don't touch a weight. Nothing. But I swear, like, just intermittent fasting, like as far as like aesthetically, the way I look, like my muscle tone is pretty crazy for somebody that doesn't work out. I think that has a lot to do
Yeah,
with
but
it, right?
you're riding.
Yeah, that's true.
It
That's true.
could.
But I'm not riding a lot. I'm riding on the weekends. I
Yeah.
ride 1 day a week.
Yeah. Hmm.
And other than that, I'm on my bicycle. So my calves and my legs are muscular looking. But it's kind of crazy that, and yeah, I mean, partially some of that's genetic for sure, but maybe some of it's due to that intermittent fasting, because before, in my off season, I'm working out in the gym again, not a lot, but 2 or 3 days a week I'm in the gym, and I'm taking my weight gainer, which I'm not taking right now, and my body looks totally different.
Hmm. Well, my problem is, we've talked about it before, is since having a baby, I can't believe, first of all, I can't believe that I used to go to the gym and lift every day of the week and cycle 4 times a week or more after I'd go to the gym. Like
Yeah,
that
that's hard.
to me now is completely impossible. And I look back, I'm like, how the hell did I do that? I'd go lift for at least an hour and a half every day. And then I would ride either with you or do group rides at the shops or whatever. I have no idea how I did that. So now my problem is I'm and I was eating a ton of food, ton of calories. I can't, I don't have time anymore. So I'm on the bike. I'm just burning straight calories, not putting on any muscle mass. I'm losing every ounce of body fat. It's a double-edged sword. I'm never going to be as fast as I want to be on a bike and as big as I want to be aesthetically. It's just not possible. It's not, at least not with my setup now.
I'd love to do some testing again to see, and I'd be curious to see where you're at as far as um, just not only like VO2 max stuff, but I want to know like your body fat percentage. Do you have any idea?
I would estimate probably right now anywhere between, I don't know, 6 to 8%, maybe 8.
Yeah, that's what I would have guessed. But you that's just a total shot in the dark. Or have you been?
That's based on what I can visually perceive. Like I'm doing like a caliper test in my mind, basically.
Okay, so
where I grab places that I can't grab anything.
It's got to be accurate then.
Yeah, super accurate.
Yeah, my trainer wanted me, or my metabolic specialist is his official title, wanted me to be at 10%. And last time I tested, I was at 3, which is like on the verge of being anorexic pretty much.
Well, doesn't that put you in a situation where you're basically just burning carbohydrates because you have no fat to burn?
Yeah, so it's not really
for energy
a place you want to be, and people probably roll their eyes when they hear me say that, and then they hear how I have a hypermetabolism.
Well, at least,
but it's tough.
Well,
dude.
At least not for an athlete. Like if you're working out straight for aesthetics and you want to look shredded and you want to have no body fat and you don't need like a super big carbohydrate demand, then that's perfect. But you're talking about an intense, at least most of the people that I know involved in mountain biking and in dirt biking and stuff, they're on and that's why I want to talk about the vegan cyclist with. It's like, we're talking about what's typically a super carbohydrate intense workout, right, and you're burning a ton of carbohydrates. So
yeah, that's always been my struggle though, is I feel like I'm just straight up burning muscle. Like my body's just, especially when I used to race outdoors, those long motos, felt like my body was just being eaten because I had nothing. I had no fuel. There was only, we had 3% body fat. That's tough.
Yep. Yeah, because once you burn all the carbohydrate stores and all your glucose and all that, your body would default to burning some fat. If you don't have any fat to burn, that's it. No more energy. So while we wrap it up here, I do want to just throw out to everybody that we're going to try to get some cool stuff going for when Supercross ends, maybe before, as AJ starts to do his camps and stuff like that, has a little more flexibility, going to be traveling a little bit. I threw out the idea of doing a video where we would compare who could burn the most calories in a 20-minute session AJ on a motocross bike on a motocross track and me mountain biking the same track for the same amount of time. And like, I think our fitness is pretty comparable. So what we would do is we would do like a base test of road ride at a specified wattage. And like, we're pretty similar weight. We're pretty similar fitness. We're pretty similar build. And I think we would be pretty close. So I think this is a good experiment. But like, we would do a road ride, a consistent wattage, and see for like a specified number of time and see how our calorie numbers compared. And then we would use that ratio and as a comparison to how we would do on the other test, which would be I'm riding the same track as he's riding. I'm on a mountain bike. He's on a dirt bike. 20-minute session, 20-minute moto. Where do we stack up? I think that'd be cool to.
Yeah. So let us know what you think, guys. Who's going to burn more calories? What would you guess, Bryce? That's tough.
I mean, I'm gonna say they're pretty close.
I'm gonna say dirt bike, but it's
because it's more of a full body
right.
thing. At least in that type of condition,
right? But then
like, it's not exactly apples to apples.
Then again, because we're gonna obviously this is gonna be based on what our heart rate monitors are estimating, per our BPM per our heart rate. So it's not calculating that really. It's just going to be calculating what our heart rates are. And I imagine our heart rates
we'll have to use the same
pegged, both of us, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, for those of you who have ever tried to ride a mountain bike on a motocross track, it's actually a lot harder than it sounds. So yeah, I mean, I'm imagining it's going to be a pretty all out effort. I mean, especially if we're doing it on video and we're testing it, like, we're not exactly going to hold back. So I'm assuming we're going to have pretty comparable heart rates.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Maybe not. But to that end, we want to hear from you. If you guys have any ideas for anything, I mean, we just came up with that idea like yesterday. But if you have any ideas on interesting videos we could do or tests we could do or anything like that, shoot us a message on Instagram. Shoot AJ a message, shoot the podcast a message, shoot me a message, whatever you want to do. And we'll see if we can do it.
Yeah, and if you guys have questions as well, keep sending in your questions. I'd like to put another podcast aside where we basically strictly answer a bunch of your guys' questions again. I think those ones are cool. So do we still have that right now email going, or did you shut that email down?
We still have the email which is questions.catpodcast@gmail.com. I might start up another one from a brand consistency sake. But as of right now, send those questions to that email.
Okie dokie.
All right, pal. Well, if I don't talk to you, good luck this weekend. And it's been a real pleasure, as always.
Thank you, sir. All this talk of food. I
gotta
go
buddy.
eat.
Same.
Right, toodaloo.
Adios, amigo.